Hello, hi, welcome. Good to see you again. Today we're doing a heavy one. I know, but I love Amy. We will be talking about substance abuse. I will not go into anything gruesome, but I guess that's kind of objective, isn't it? And we will be talking about death, of course. Also, trigger warning for ED. So while there's not a lot of it until the very, very end, there is some talk of ED and a mention of self-harm. I'm not going to go into it too much, but I wanted to throw it out there. So if it's not something you can watch, I totally understand. Protect your peace, and I'll see you next time. As always, I do these with the utmost respect and love for these artists. This is just information I have gathered through various media sources. And this one I'm also going to get a little bit personal. So there's going to be a little bit of our story in there too. As you can tell, we did a Amy-inspired look today. We've got the bandana and the red lip and the big old wang. So let's jump right in. So the dogs are gonna bark. The neighbors are gonna neighbor. My chair is gonna squeak. It's like wicker. So I'm gonna try to keep it as quiet as possible. I'm going to try to stay over to this side. We do have a new cactus. You can help me name it. Look, it's growing a new little cacti. He's doing really well. I have a black thumb, so I just decided to leave it alone because it's a cactus. Hopefully he'll make it. I don't know why he's a he. So you can help me name my new cactus. My brows are on, and I've used the Urban Decay brow blade for this today and my soap brow. So Amy Jade Winehouse was born September 14th. 1983, making sis a Virgo. I gave birth to a Virgo, and they're an interesting breed for sure. She was born in Gordon Hill, Enfield, in England, into a Jewish family. Her dad, Mitch, was a window installer and then started driving a cab, and her mother, Janice, was a pharmacist. They lived in London's Southgate community, and as a child, she went to Osage, I'm not sure how you say it, primary school, and attended Jewish Sunday school. And it's said that she was incredibly cheeky and mischievous. She was wildly outgoing and bubbly and just sassy. And many of Amy's maternal uncles were jazz musicians. Amy's paternal grandmother, Cynthia, was a singer. Her father was a singer. He sang like big band, Frank Sinatra style stuff. Her grandmother even reportedly dated British jazz saxophonist Ronnie Scott, and her father used to sing to her, so she grew up in a very musical household. Amy listened to everything from Thelonious Monk, Jimi Hendrix, Sarah Vaughan, Carole King, to Salt and Pepper, the Beastie Boys. She had a wide variety of taste in music, and she credits them all for influencing her sound. In 1992, her grandmother suggested that she attend theater school. She attended for 4 years and formed the short-lived rap group Sweet and Sour, and she formed this with her childhood friend Juliet Ashby. It's reported that she was expelled from theater school, but I found like her headmaster and her father both denied that, so I don't think that was true. So after playing around with her brother Alex's guitar, she decided when she was around 14 to get her own, and she began writing music. And not long after that, she soon began making a living making music. She even worked as an entertainment journalist for a little while. So word on the street was that there was this extremely cool new artist named Amy Winehouse. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. Gachis or Gachis. Beast is his last name. And he was working for a record company, and he was trying to track her down because management was trying to keep her a secret. And he had seen her sing and asked her manager who she was, and he told him that he was not allowed to tell him. And it seemed like everyone was trying to sign Amy. Sis was in high demand. And it's B-E-E-S-E, not Beast. I know it sounds like I'm saying Beast. It took several months of Beast asking around to discover who Amy was. And at this point, he finally discovered who she was, but she had already been signed to a publishing deal with EMI. So Beast introduced Amy to his boss, Nick Gatfeld. The Island Records head shared his enthusiasm in signing her, and she was offered a record deal with Island. They wanted to get to her immediately because BMI and Virgin were already kind of foaming at the mouth to get to her. Now, Beast told hitmakers that the reason they were all kind of after Amy was because she was so atypical. She was not your typical pop star. She was different and she was unique, and she had this amazing voice that it was like it was almost out of a completely different generation or completely different decade. And Amy said she always knew that jazz and R&B would be the direction that she would take. She said that was really the music that spoke to her. And I feel you, Amy. It's my favorite too. And blues. She just loved all the passion and the heart and the authenticity of those two genres. We're going to do this wing, but I'm trying to shape it out now. In 2003, her first album, Frank, was released, and she co-wrote every single song on that album aside from the covers. I don't know if she gets the credit she deserves for the songwriter that she was. It caused quite a stir in the industry, and she was compared to artists like Macy Gray and Sarah Vaughan, but she wasn't trying to be like anybody else. She was just writing what she knew. She said when she wrote, it was always about something personal. She never just wrote a song to be writing a song. And I have known songwriters like that. They'll sit down and they'll say, I want to write about this. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something they've gone through, but she felt like if she hadn't gone through it, she couldn't convey it in the way she wanted to. In 2004, Amy got 2 nominations for the Brit Awards. It was for Best Female Brit Artist and Best Brit Urban Act. Later in 2004, she would win an Ivor Novello Award for the song Stronger Than Me. And the thing that set Amy apart was that she was not some manufactured pop star. Like, there's nothing fake about Amy. She was just genuine and authentic, sometimes to her own detriment, but usually it worked. People liked it. They liked the honesty. Amy had a deep love and appreciation for the 60s girl groups like the Ronettes. Who doesn't? But especially their aesthetic. I mean, she loved their music, but she adopted their aesthetic, and that was her jam. She loved everything about it, from the clothes to the beehives to the Cleopatra eyeliner. And in turn, Karl Lagerfeld, the fashion designer, actually said he took a lot of inspiration from Amy. Now, about this time, Amy would meet the 2 men that would change her life for the rest of her life. And that would be producer Mark Ronson and Blake Fielder-Sibble. Mark Ronson had an amazing working relationship with Amy. They adored working with each other, and they seemed to bring out the best in each other and pull each other out of their comfort zone. It was a very symbiotic relationship, and I think they kind of pushed each other to be their best. And it's always awesome to have a work relationship like that with somebody. They both knew each other's strengths and their weaknesses. They were also both incredibly unique. Back to Black would be Amy's sophomore release and would also be her creation together with Mark. And it would go down in history as one of the most highly unique and original albums of all time. But the fuel for this album would be Amy's relationship with Blake. All the passion from that relationship was poured into this album. So every song on the Back to Black album was deeply personal. And the song Back to Black itself was from a very specific time in Amy and Blake's relationship. They were dating, and he was still with another girlfriend at the time when they started dating. And Amy said that he would spend time with her, but he would always go back home to his girlfriend, and thus we get the song Back to Black. At this time, she had begun drinking heavily. Even first thing in the morning, she was having booze for breakfast. And it's said that her record company tried to get her to go to rehab, but she said, no, no, no. Again, just another incredibly personal song written from actual experiences. And Rehab was actually the first single released off the Back to Black album, and Time magazine named Rehab the best song of 2007. She would also win another Brit Award. Soon Amy broke out in America, and she was nominated for 5 Grammy Awards, but her wild child persona preceded her, and she was actually denied a visa to come to the States to go to the Grammys and perform. So she had to perform from a remote area in Britain, and it was broadcast on the Grammys. Now the awards and the accolades kept coming, and from the outside things seemed awesome for Amy, but on the inside things weren't going so well, and Amy was starting to kind of display some destructive behaviors. Her mother said she struggled with a lot of these in her youth, but at this point they really started to ramp up. Come here. Hi. Oh, thank you. This is Bowie. Most of you know him. He's hard to see on the black background. Black background. Okay, say bye. I love you. I love you. You're so sweet. Bye. Okay, go. Out. They're gonna scratch and whine at the door. Anyhow, Amy's destructive behaviors began to ramp up, and now not only was she drinking alcohol, but she was also using crack cocaine. I don't even think that's big enough for an Amy wing. And all along through all this, her beau, Blake, had been along for the ride, and people seemed to not like Blake too much. They felt like he was a bad influence. Blake had been a runner, which is kind of like a production assistant on music videos. And their relationship was described as incredibly toxic and codependent, which is not uncommon for couples who are addicts, even for friends who are addicts together. So when things were good, they were great. And when things were bad, they were an absolute disaster. This is hard, you guys, talking and doing this. So nobody liked Blake, and a lot of people blamed him for the situation that Amy was in. Because I was a lifeguard, and one of the first things they teach you is that when someone is drowning, they will pull you down with them. It's just instinct. And I think it's a good analogy for people in addiction. They don't want to go down alone. And Blake had been a serial substance abuser, so his track record was not good. I think maybe Amy hid hers a little bit better, or wasn't as hardcore into it as Blake was when they got together. So he got blamed for a lot. It's codependency. So you see it not just with couples, but with friends, like if you have a drug buddy. Because the addiction is not only biologic, but it's also psychological. And anyone will tell you the biological addiction is only the first hurdle, and that the psychological addiction takes much longer, and for some it's a lifelong battle. This is the danger of doing these types of wings when you have a hooded eye. I'm gonna have to fix this and make it work, because transfer. I just want to explain that when someone feels pain, they take a drug, it releases dopamine, and the pain in the body goes away. But that same mechanism also fixes mental pain. And I don't think a lot of people grasp this, but I think the number is around 80% of addicts have a mental health issue. So the two are very closely linked. So anyway, Amy's begun to lose control. And it's sad because her career is like just taking off. She's doing amazing things. And her record label knew what was going on. You can only hide addiction for so long. And Amy just went from this once happy, bubbly, audacious girl to kind of rude and violent. She admitted it, but she just didn't admit that it was a problem. Unfortunately, not long after this, the tabloid The Sun released video of Amy smoking crack, and the sick thing, we'll say allegedly, was that Blake was selling pictures and videos to the tabloids of Amy. It was like anytime he needed money, he would sell another video or picture of Amy doing something like that. It was incredibly disgusting. And like, I know we do things when we're addicts that are wrong and messed up, but that just, I don't know, it seems like such a betrayal. Now, the British tabloids were called out many times for their disgusting behavior and treatment of Amy. They had like this morbid fascination with her. And one time they showed her ballet flats and there was blood on them, and they accused her of injecting between her toes. And I know that's a thing, but why would that be the first thing you jump to? In August of 2007, Amy and Blake announced their engagement. A month later, they got married in Miami, and her father Mitch made it no secret how he felt about Blake. He hated him. But as a parent, I guess you just kind of know if you push them away, it's only gonna make them want to be together more. Let this dry. But Mitch had watched the progression of Amy's mental illness and her drug use the time that she had been with Blake, and it definitely got worse. And while Blake can't be held responsible making smoking crack part of your everyday routine, you know, it's like when you try to quit smoking cigarettes. If you're with a smoker, it's harder to quit. So if you're smoking crack every day, your addict wife, you know, that's not a good relationship. It's not a safe place to be in. And it does make you an enabler. Reports had begun to come in that Amy could be violent when she was using, and that she would allegedly attack Blake. I guess some aren't alleged because I think we have police reports. And also, she slapped a photographer, and she spat at Pippa Middleton, member of the royal family. So that didn't go over real well. And the thing is that Amy's a star, so when she's out in public, she's surrounded by paparazzi. So of course, everything's gonna be photographed or videotaped. So things were quickly unraveling, and her music career was taking a back seat. In 2009, she assaulted a theater manager, and she was arrested. She was charged, and she had to pay some small fines, but she basically got like a 2-year discharge. Reports also came out that she and Blake both were self-harming, and a lot of people didn't believe that, but her mom confirmed it in a book after she had passed away. And she said Amy actually struggled with that as a child and as a young teenager. Their relationship just became more and more volatile. In August of that year, Amy was rushed to the hospital. She had overdosed on heroin, ketamine, cocaine, and ecstasy, along with alcohol. And I mean, good Lord. I don't know how she survived that, but that was an incredibly scary time for her and her family. And not long after that, Blake was arrested for assaulting a bartender and carrying a fake handgun, and he was sentenced to 3 years in jail. They said right to jail. So Blake goes to jail, and Amy decides that she needs a break, and everyone around her is like, yes, take a break, please take a break. So she decides to go to St. Lucia, and our good LGG friend Mo lives in St. Lucia. And if you see this, Mo, we love you. I'm praying for you and hope you get to feeling better. I'm thinking about you. So while Amy's there in St. Lucia, she's trying to get clean. She's recording. Most people say, though, that the recording was not up to snuff. So most of it was scratched. Sorry guys, if my lighting changed, I had a moment with my camera, so just bear with me. I'm gonna keep going. So while I normally wouldn't comment on someone's weight, it can be an indicator of health depending on the person's drug of choice. And during her time in St. Lucia, Amy put back on a lot of weight and she was starting to look more healthy. And of course, what's healthy for one person may not be healthy for another, so I don't want to get that part twisted. It's just for Amy. She tended to be very underweight when she was using, and she tended to be at a more healthier weight for her when she wasn't. It was also alleged at this time that alcohol had become a replacement for Amy, but just not using is not enough. You have to get to the root of the addiction. And St. Lucia is just another place. If you carry your baggage there, you're going to carry it home. To make matters worse, when she got back to London, she was diagnosed with emphysema, and undoubtedly from smoking crack. At her age, cigarettes don't normally cause emphysema for someone in their 20s. I mean, it can, but it was probably a combination of both. At this point, Amy's label had just given up. They didn't know what to do, and she returned to Camden in 2009 after 9 months in St. Lucia. And when she returned, Blake had a new partner and she was pregnant. And Amy admitted to being unfaithful as well, and the two decided to divorce. But it said that Amy didn't really want the divorce and that she even fought against it. And she's even quoted as saying, "I won't let him divorce me." And at Blake's request, and I guess to Blake's credit, he requested that he receive nothing in the divorce. At this point, he didn't want anything from her. It is said to this day that she's still the love of his life and that he'll never get over her. Now, Mark Ronson still believed in Amy though, and he actually asked her to work on a new song for the new James Bond movie, Quantum of Solace, but that wound up being a disaster. She would show up inebriated and late, just unable to work, that sort of thing. And they actually got into a bit of a Twitter war, and it got pretty bad. And speaking from experience, when an addict is going off on you, usually you have to recognize when it's the person speaking and when it's the drug speaking. And Amy said a lot of things to Mark she probably regretted, because she always loved him and Mark always loved her. I feel like it was, they had this great friendship, but there was this tit for tat going on, and most believe it was the substances talking. In the last 2 years of Amy's life, she did find some stability in her new partner, film director Reg Travis, but her ties to Blake seemed to be unbreakable. And those types of relationships often are. Amy once said, "I love to sing. It's what I was put on this earth for. That and to love Blake and be a mother." And here Blake was with another girl having a child, and all Amy ever wanted was to be in that girl's position. It's so sad. And to Blake's partner's credit, she said she had seen Blake and Amy together and she knew they were soulmates. And in her heart, she knew that she would always be second. Amy had truly pushed her body to its limits. She was so young and already it was failing her. In her mom's book, she said that Amy struggled with ED from a very young age, specifically bulimia, which had continued and just compounded all these other problems that the drugs were causing. Her mom said that she had resigned herself to the fact that she was going to lose Amy. Now, I've been on both sides of the coin, but as the loved one of somebody in addiction, I don't think people realize that you begin to mourn the loss of the person long before they're gone. They inevitably pull away and change. And they pull away because they don't want you to see what they know you see. And you mourn the loss of the relationship long before anything else. When one of my daughters completed rehab, there was a ceremony, like a graduation ceremony, and basically everyone gets to say how you impacted them in your time there, and your family gets to speak. And what I said to her was, for you, it's been 90 days that you were away. But for me, it's been years since I've seen my daughter. And the sad thing is that they know. They know, but they can't control it. And I really, really wish there was more compassion where addicts are concerned because I think the lack of compassion and the apathy comes from not at all understanding how addiction works. And them knowing that you know, and them not being able to control it, that all leads to guilt. Guilt leads to hopelessness, and then hopelessness just feeds the cycle, and it continues. And in this country, the United States, there is very little help. People say, well, get help. Help costs a lot of money. It's more expensive to get sober than it is to stay high, and that's a sad fact. So Amy's deterioration was obvious at her final show in Belgrade. She was falling all over the stage. She could barely stand up. She was booed off. There had been some glimmers of hope, and her manager had begun giving her like small gigs, but I think the added pressure of performing was just too much for Amy. Amy herself once said, if you can't sort something out yourself, no one can help you. And for Amy, this proved to be incredibly true. At 3:54 p.m. on July 23rd, 2011, Amy was discovered by her bodyguard. He had gone in earlier in the morning to check on her, and she was asleep, which she often was after being up all night drinking. So he shut the door and decided to let her sleep. But when he came back in to check on her, he realized that she was unconscious, and he phoned emergency services. The coroner's inquest reached a verdict of misadventure. The report released on the 26th of October 2011 explained that Amy's blood alcohol level was 416 milligrams per 100 mil. So she had a blood alcohol level of 0.416, and she was probably 95 pounds, if that. For reference, 0.08 is above the legal limit here in the US. According to the coroner, the unintended consequence of having that much alcohol in her system was her cause of death, and there were actually no other drugs in Amy's system. It was purely alcohol. But alcohol can be a very big problem, just as big as heroin or crack or anything else. And I'm not here to shame anybody or anything like that. I just think sometimes we don't take it as seriously as we do other things. On December 17th, 2012, British authorities reopened the case into Amy's death, and on January 6, 2013, the second report confirmed sudden death by alcohol poisoning. In a June 2013 interview, Alex, Amy's brother, revealed his belief that his sister's eating disorder played a huge role in her death, and that it caused her to be so physically weak that it couldn't sustain her, which is not really a huge revelation. We know this about eating disorders. My lips are just going to be uneven. So Alex believes that really it was her bulimia that killed her, because but for the fact that she didn't have ED, she would have been stronger and able to, get past the addiction. I'm not sure. That was his take on it. Let me do something to this dew and I'll be right back. Okay, so we're back, and we did another nod to Amy, and we had to make this swing a little bit bigger. Anyway, there's always going to be questions on whether enough was done. I think it's normal to ask that, but I feel like in Amy's case, she was being looked after by a doctor. She was in an outpatient rehab facility, and it seems like most people did what they could while trying to get an adult to do something they did not want to do. And I'm also sure there were people in her life that literally loved her to death. That's an actual saying in recovery. At some point, it's more loving to stop co-signing people's bullcrap and hold them accountable. And you can do that lovingly. I'm not the best at it, especially being a mom. I think we're the worst at it. If you watch true crime, it's always the mothers who sign their children's BS. And I just want to say, if you have a loved one in Amy's position, I want you to reach out. There are people that can help you help them better, because we need that help as much as those of us who were addicts need the help. And I'm going to link some resources in the description box, so please avail yourself to those if that's something you think you might could use. And if you are struggling with addiction, I beg of you not to give up. I promise it's never too late. It always feels like it's too late, but it's never too late. The actual lie is that you've gone too far, but you've never gone too far. And real quick, I just want to say, I'm going to finish up the story, but I just want to say that I'm going to do this video hopefully as a small fundraiser. I know I don't have enough subscribers. I know that I don't have monetization, but even if it's a tiny little bit that can help, it might be enough to push somebody over the edge in being able to get help and not. So what I can do is link a PayPal and a website. And as I said before, if you live in the US, you know our healthcare system is complete and utter garbage. And when one of my children was ready for help, we called to get her help and found that rehabs ran anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000, $60,000, and we did not have the money, so there was no professional help for her. But my link is for Charleston Recovery Center. It's in Charleston, South Carolina, but they take people from all over the country. My daughter was staying with a couple, and I won't say their name, but they are the sweetest couple you'd ever want to meet in your life, and I'll call them Kate and Liv. And they were trying to get her to start over in a new city, and my kiddo overdosed there, and my kiddo shared her story, so I'm sure she's fine with this. And they called around, and they found this place that said, if she wants help, we'll find her a scholarship. Sorry, you guys. So because people made donations, my daughter was able to get the recovery help she needed. This is a house where addicts all live together, and they are guided, and they have meetings all day, and they get to exercise, and they cook for each other, and they are taught how to live sober. This is not a lockdown facility. No one is required to be there. No one is forced to be there. This is for people who want to be sober. Of course, I do the biggest wing possible, and then so if you happen to make a donation, know that it's going to a place where they are really making a difference. I'm gonna leave a link to their website and a link to their PayPal. All their donation information is also on their website, so you can go through that as well. But this was started by a guy who just wanted to help, not a big corporation. And they gave me my daughter back. And we need more places like this, especially until we fix our healthcare system. Sorry, guys. So not long after her death, when giving an interview, the interviewer said to Mitch, her father, it must be heartbreaking knowing that there are people out there who've already penned her obituary. And Mitch said, the heartbreaking thing is that I've done it myself. Amy received an outpouring of love from fans, other musicians. Fans left whiskey bottles, cigarettes, flowers, letters, and no one was surprised. In the midst of his grief, Mitch still wanted to talk about his daughter, and I get the impression that Amy was definitely his daddy's girl. Amy's funeral took place in accordance with Jewish tradition. Her dad gave the eulogy, and Blake Fildercivil did not attend her funeral, he said, out of respect for her family. Whether fortunate or unfortunate, the decision was made to destroy all of the recordings that Amy made during the worst time in her addiction. And throughout her life, Amy was very charitable. She donated money, music, her time to different children's charities. She was once even named the most charitable pop act by Pop World. And this side of her personality was never really known to the public. And I think it's important to point out that throughout both the arts community and the charity community, she was known for her generosity. A Caribbean man named Julian Jean-Baptiste said that when Amy was in St. Lucia, he needed a surgery that cost over like 4,000 pounds, and it was like urgent, and Amy heard about it and paid for it. He said, I had surgery on July 1st, 2009. It cost a fortune, and Amy paid for the whole thing. I tried to thank her, but she just hugged me and told me not to say anything. Her generosity gave me my life back. It was so sweet. In 2011, the Amy Winehouse Foundation was set up by her parents. The central office is in London, and they have another office in New York. Amy's brother Alex works full-time there and gave up his career as a music journalist to work there. The charity itself works to prevent the effects of drug and alcohol abuse on young people, and it just helps them reach their full potential. All these stories are tragic, you know, but just like others we've discussed, whether it's Prince or John Bonham, Amy was extraordinary, and it seems as though the more extraordinary the talent, the more extraordinary the struggles that they have, or the demons that they have to overcome are. It's really heartbreaking, but I'm happy that her family found some healing in carrying on her memory and her legacy through her foundation. It's really hard not to see Amy through the lens of her issues, but I hope we remember her for her remarkable talent and for the sweet, quirky, compassionate, loving, giving girl that she was. So that's it for today, guys. I always say it, they're sad. Some are sad, some are happy, but some are sad. But I thought this was an important one. I wanted to share a little bit about me also in this because it does hit so close to home. Sorry I got all emotional. But I hope you will join me again for something. Next time it should be something a little less heavy and something a little more lighter, makeup involved. But yeah, if you guys have any suggestions for the next makeup and music, please leave them for me. I would love to do what you guys want to hear. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I will leave those links down in the description box, and I hope that you will, if nothing else, even if you can't give right now, if you'll share that website, that would help. Thanks for listening. I love y'all with my whole heart. Be kind to yourself and be kind to others. It's a rough world out there and we need each other. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye.